A few years ago, a client asked us to build a real time dashboard for their account balance feature. Kafka cluster, Flink jobs, Redis caching layer. Manage Kafka on top of that. Beautifully architected, genuinely impressive engineering. The scenario on the launch day, perfect. Everyone high fived. Product team thrilled. Then comes day 30 when the AWS bill arrives. Infrastructure $4,000 a month. Engineer time spent babysitting Kafka brokers, tuning Flink jobs, debugging stream inconsistencies, another 3,600. The total $7,600 a month.
And the batch alternative, refreshing every 15 minutes instead of instantly, $700 a month. The real time version was 11 times more expensive for an account balance that nobody was checking more than a few times a day.
And here's the part that should bother every CTO listening to this. Nobody asked the question that mattered before any of that got built. Does this actually need to be real time? Or does it just need to feel responsive? Those are very different engineering problems, and only one of them cost 11 times more. Welcome to Discovery to Solutions, where we bring technology conversations from the whiteboard to reality.
I'm Karan Khanna.
And I'm Kavya Malhotra. Today we're talking about the most overused word in every stakeholder meeting we sit in, real time. Everyone wants it, but almost nobody can tell you why. By our estimate, around 90% of we need real time requests are actually hourly would be completely fine. We just haven't said that out loud yet. This episode is about telling the difference and what to say in the room when someone insists otherwise.
Let's talk about why this matters so much financially. The pattern is consistent across every engagement we've done. Streaming infrastructure is almost always more expensive than batch for the same volume of data. Why? Because streaming requires resources to be on all the time, listening, processing, writing continuously. Batch spins up, does its work, shuts down. You only pay for compute when the job actually runs. Think of it like a restaurant. A batch kitchen opens at set hours. Staff arrives, cooks, cleans up, goes home. A streaming kitchen is open 24/7. Staff standing by at 3 in the morning in case an order comes in. That standing by costs money every hour, whether an order comes in or not.
And the infrastructure bill is only half the story. There's a documented case, streaming pipeline, real production deployment, batch incidents, maybe one or two failed jobs a month, 30 minutes to resolve, about 90 minutes of total incident time. The streaming equivalent on the same workload, Kafka broker failures, Flink checkpoint failures, consumer lag spikes, duplicate or lost data, cache invalidation issues, 34 hours of incident time in a month. That's 23 times more operational overhead. Not 23% more, 23 times.
Now, I want to be fair here, because the picture isn't universally bleak for streaming. There are well documented cases where streaming becomes cheaper than batch over time, once a team matures into it. If your batch jobs are failing 30 to 40% more often than a well run streaming pipeline, which happens with legacy ETL, the hidden cost of batch failures, reprocessing, and stale data business impact can outweigh streaming's upfront cost. But that's a multi year maturity curve. Month 1, streaming often costs double what batch costs because you're running both in parallel during migration. It only becomes cheaper once your team has the operational muscle to run it well. That muscle takes months to build, and most organizations underestimate that timeline badly.
So the honest statement isn't streaming is always more expensive. It's streaming is more expensive immediately, and only becomes competitive once you have the volume, the team maturity, and a genuine latency requirement to justify the investment. Most organizations asking for real time have none of those three things yet. So, if the economics are this lopsided, why does almost every stakeholder conversation start with, we need this in real time? Because real time has become a proxy word. It doesn't actually mean, I need this within 5 seconds. It means I don't trust that this data is current, or I was burned once by a stale report, or honestly, real time sounds more impressive in the roadmap deck than hourly.
From our side, I'll admit there's a mirror version of this mistake. Data teams get excited too. Someone says real time, and suddenly it's the most technically interesting problem on the roadmap. Kafka Flink event streams, that's a more fun project than optimize the nightly batch job. Excitement is not a requirements document. I've seen teams build genuinely impressive streaming architecture for a problem that an hourly refresh would have solved completely.
The fix starts with one question asked before any architecture conversation. Not how fast can we make this, but what decision gets made with this data and how often does that decision actually happen? If a sales director looks at a revenue dashboard once a day during their morning coffee, real time data updating every 2 seconds doesn't change a single decision they make. It just makes the dashboard prettier while they're not looking at it.
Now, I want to be very clear because this episode is not real time is always wrong. There are scenarios where real time isn't a luxury, it's the entire point of the system. First, fraud detection. A fraudulent transaction needs to be caught and blocked in the milliseconds between authorization and settlement, not in tonight's batch job. By the time a batch pipeline flags it tomorrow morning, the money's gone. The decision window has already closed. There is no alias fine version of fraud detection. The entire value of the system lives in the latency.
Second, algorithmic trading and financial markets. Prices move in milliseconds. A risk exposure that's visible Tuesday morning but happened Monday afternoon isn't a minor delay. It's a financial loss that has already happened and can no longer be prevented. In trading, the entire competitive advantage often is the latency. Real time isn't a feature, it's the product.
Third, IoT safety monitoring at industrial or physical scale. Think temperature sensors on manufacturing equipment, pressure monitoring on pipelines, remote patient monitoring on medical devices. If a sensor detects a dangerous threshold being crossed, a batch job that runs every hour is not a data architecture decision anymore. It's a safety failure waiting to happen. When the cost of latency is measured in equipment damage or human harm, the streaming investment isn't even a debate.
Notice what's common across all three of these: fraud, trading, safety critical IoT. In every case, the value of the data decays to nearly zero within seconds or minutes of the event happening. And the cost of acting late isn't a slightly worse decision. It's measured in direct financial loss or physical harm. That's the actual bar for genuine real time, not this would be nice to have sooner. But the value of this data has a half life measured in seconds, and missing that window has a quantifiable cost.
So let's make this practical. When a stakeholder says, I need this in real time, here's the framework we actually use. Question 1: what decision gets made from this data and who makes it? If the answer is a person looks at this once or twice a day and decides something, you don't need real time. You need that data fresh by the time they look at it. That's a very different, much cheaper requirement.
Question 2: what's the actual cost of acting on slightly stale data? For fraud or safety monitoring, that cost is severe and immediate. Money lost, harm done. For a quarterly revenue dashboard, the cost of being 30 minutes stale is genuinely zero. Quantify the cost of lateness before you quantify the cost of speed. Most teams only do the second one.
Question 3: how fast does the underlying metric actually change? Some metrics are inherently volatile: order queue length, live error rates, page load latency. Those move every minute, and stale data genuinely misleads you. Other metrics are structurally slow: monthly active users, quarterly churn, headcount. Watching those in real time doesn't reveal insight, it just creates noise and false urgency. Monitoring a slow moving metric in real time is like checking your height every 5 minutes. The measurement isn't wrong, it's just pointless at that frequency.
If the answers come back infrequent decision, low cost of staleness, slow moving metric, that's a batch or near real time problem. Full stop. If the answers come back frequent or continuous decision, high cost of staleness, fast moving metric, now we're having a real conversation about streaming. Most requests don't even survive question one. Let's talk about the conversation itself. Because knowing the framework doesn't help if you don't know how to use it in the room. The mistake most data teams make when pushing back is leading with the technical cost. Streaming is 11 times more expensive. Here's the architecture diagram. Here's why this is hard. That loses the room immediately. To a stakeholder, that sounds like the data team being difficult.
The better opening is never no, it's a question back. Walk me through what you'll do differently if this number updates every second instead of every hour. 9 times out of 10, the honest answer is nothing really. I just want to know it's current when I look at it. That answer alone usually ends the real time conversation without you ever having to say no.
And when there genuinely is a difference, when the stakeholder can articulate a real action they take sooner, translate the cost into their language, not yours. Don't say this requires a Kafka cluster and a Flink job. Say real time here costs roughly 11 times more to build and run than an hourly refresh. Is the value of catching this issue 45 minutes sooner worth that multiple every month indefinitely? Framed as an ongoing cost against a specific named benefit, most stakeholders make the right call themselves. You don't have to be the one saying no. The math does it for you.
And offer the middle path before they ask for it. Near real time, micro batches every 1 to 5 minutes, solves the vast majority of I want it sooner requests at a fraction of full streaming's cost and complexity. It's not glamorous, it rarely makes a roadmap slide exciting, but it solves the actual problem, which is usually I don't want to wait until tomorrow, not I need sub-second latency. Reserve true streaming for the cases we described earlier: fraud, trading, safety. Everywhere else, near real time is the answer nobody asked for, and almost everybody actually needs.
All right, a VP of operations calls us. They want real time everything across their reporting stack. What do we actually tell them?
First, audit every real time request against the 3 questions before any architecture gets discussed: decision frequency, cost of staleness, metric volatility. I guarantee at least 70% of the list falls away immediately once you ask, what would you do differently with this 5 seconds sooner? Second, for what's left, default to near real time, micro batch in the 1 to 5 minute range before reaching for true streaming. It solves almost everything that isn't fraud, trading, or safety. Third, and this is the one people skip, if you do build streaming, budget for the operational maturity curve. Month 1 will cost more than batch, not less. Plan the migration cost and the training cost into the business case from day 1, not as a surprise 6 months in.
And my addition, speed without trust is worthless. I've seen organizations build genuinely fast real time pipelines that nobody actually uses because the underlying data has quality issues, inconsistent metric definitions, or no clear ownership. A dashboard that updates every second, showing a number two different departments calculate two different ways, is not progress. It's just a faster way to show people something they don't trust. Fix the data quality and the definitions first. Speed is worthless until trust exists. And trust takes longer to build than any streaming pipeline does.
The real lesson underneath all of this: real time is a tool for specific, well defined problems. It's not a maturity badge, it's not a roadmap flex. It's an expensive, operationally demanding solution to a very narrow category of problem. Use it exactly where it earns its cost, nowhere else.
So, real time data, genuinely essential for fraud, trading, and safety critical systems. Genuinely unnecessary for the other 90% of requests that use the word without meaning it. Ask what decision gets made, how often, and what staleness actually costs before you ask how fast you can build it.
If your organization has a roadmap full of real time line items and nobody has run them through that filter yet, that conversation is worth having before the Kafka cluster gets provisioned, not after. We've decommissioned more over engineered streaming pipelines than we've built from scratch. Next episode, we're tackling the topic that gets skipped in almost every kickoff meeting, right up until it's the reason the whole project stalls: data governance, the most boring topic that kills the most projects. If you've ever heard someone say, "We'll figure out governance later," we need to talk about how that sentence has ended every single time we've heard it.
See you in the next episode. Thanks for listening to us on Discovery to Solutions.